Hello everyone and welcome back to My Opinion, and in this video I'll be reviewing the season of the Lucknow Supergiants. Now, as I said in my previous video, the four teams that have qualified for the players have all had good seasons, and I don't think that would be the question for LSG season. However, I think their season has ended prematurely as to what it should have been. Now, after their first 11 games of their league stage, they won 8 of their 11 games, and I thought that with what they showed during that time, they should have gone on to win the overall competition. And unfortunately for them, in their last 3 league games, and those 3 games are the ones that saw them lose momentum that they generated beforehand. They lost against the GT by 62 runs. They then lost to the Royals by 24 runs. And even the win against KKR was by a narrow 2 runs. And in my view, they should have won that game by at least 50 runs or more. Because even, I remember in the first innings, KL Rahul's innings got some unwarranted criticism in my view. And I think the reason why I'm saying unwarranted is because the DY Patil track where that game was being played is kind of a 160 odd track. And we've seen many games kind of being played where you can make a game out of it by posting 160, despite the fact that in many occasions the side chasing has won. But I've said quite a few times before that if you bowl well enough with a 160 odd score to be on the safe side, then you can win games at that venue. And I think Rahul went to 8 and over, which would have been, if you project that run rate, then with the strike rate rather, it would have got them to a 160 odd score. The reason why his strike rate looked pale in comparison to the other players is because apart from Sunil Narayan from KKR and Mohsin Khan for LSG, the other bowlers bowled terribly. And in the end, the game somehow became a batting free-for-all where above 400 runs were scored. And that's why I think, considering that LSG got 210 runs on a slow surface against a side that they beat by 75 runs just a week back, and they really should have beat them by at least 40 or 50 runs on this occasion as well. But they only won by a very narrow margin in the end, and by the end they kind of, you thought that KKR could have, or rather should have won the game because LSG had bottled it or almost bottled it so badly with the ball. So they certainly, with the last 3 games of their league stage, they lost that kind of aura that they had during the first 11 games of their season. And I think they would have been looking to finish second, and they looked like finishing second. Unfortunately, those 3 games, especially the 2 losses, saw them finish third based on net run rate, as the Royals had finished with the same points as them at the end of the group stage, meaning that they finished second via net run rate. And LSG had to face an RCB side that I thought looked much more threatening at this point of the season than they looked in the last 2 seasons, where I think in those eliminators you kind of thought that their opposition would they wouldn't have too much of a hard time getting the win. And in the end, especially against SRH, it kind of proved to be the case. But in this case, I thought that they relished the opportunity to be in the top 4 and were better, or would perform better than what they did in the last 2 seasons. And I think for LSG, they were going into a knockout game where they would have wanted to finish second. They were looking like finishing second, and in the end, they fell short. Regarding their positives, there's one positive that I don't think anyone would have been surprised to see, and they would have kind of predicted this even before a game was played, and that was KL Rahul scoring runs. Another 600 plus run season for him. I think his 3rd consecutive 600 plus run season in the IPL, and including 2018 and onwards, he scored 500 runs or more in every season that he's played. And even in 2016, he scored 497 runs, batting at number 4, which really saw him break into kind of the white ball cricket internationally. So, it's kind of in the last few seasons, well, ever since 2016 and onwards, he's had very good seasons every time he's played the IPL. And I'm not surprised he's had a great season once again here with 616 runs. And in terms of his opening partner, Quinton de Kock, I think if you take that 140 out, he was on course to having a decent season. He's kind of getting around the 400 run mark. But I think with the exceptional knock that he played in their last league game of the season, he took his tally to above 500 runs. And I think that knock was really important for a side, and I think the benefits of that knock would have been reaped more had they won against KKR by the margin that they should have done, so at least 40 or 50 runs. Because of the very narrow win, I think the confidence that knock would have recovered was kind of thwarted as such because of the narrow way that they won that game. And so they went into the playoffs kind of feeling, or rather with the team confidence, I think, looking a bit unconvincing as to what it was in the first 11 games. So above 500 runs scored by both the openers. They've been quite good this season. And Deepak Hooda as well, 451 runs in 14 games. And I think what I've enjoyed about his season is that he scored 4 50s, but he's also supplemented those with consistent 30s or 40s. So along with the openers who scored above 500 runs, his consistent contributions have been those three kind of in the backbone to LSG's batting. And I think it's vital that those three have had good seasons, and I'll get into the reasons why as I get along kind of through the video. And regarding LSG's bowling, I thought without Mark Wood being available, I thought that their bowling did look a bit thin, and I thought there was going to be extra pressure on Avesh Khan and Ravi Bishnoi to perform. And I think their bowling has actually outshone their batting overall, which has been quite a pleasant surprise. And as I've said before, I think this team would bode most well with as many bowling options in an 11 as they could possibly fit in, and that's the reason why I thought that even though Evan Lewis scored 55 against CSK, as soon as Stoinis was available, he would be in the side, in my view. And in terms of kind of individual performances, Avesh Khan, 18 wickets in 13 games. Now, as I've said quite a few times throughout this season, has the quality of his bowling been that great? No. I mean, he's gone at 8.72 to the over, even with some decently economical performances. And an example would be, well, like, he's got the wickets, but in terms of quality of bowling, it's not really been quite there. And the example would be his 4 for 24 against SRH. Had he not got those 2 early wickets, would they have played him out in that fashion? Well, I don't think they would have. I think there was a bit of a jammy nature to each of his 4 wickets, that he got at least 3 of them. And yeah, because he got those 2 early wickets, I think they did play him out quite a bit when there were deliveries that they could have got more runs off. So I think not a great season in terms of quality of bowling, but yes, in terms of wickets, he's still been selected for the squad to face South Africa in a few days. And personally, I think, look, he bowled in the 130 odds, in the low 130 odds this season quite a few times, and he can bowl much quicker than that. I don't think he can bowl as quickly as many people are making it out to be, but he can still, on a good day, at least in the low 140s. And he didn't do that too often this season. Also, bowling many of his deliveries in straight lines at 130 odd kph. That's not going to work too well when you're coming up against the better sides. And in this competition, especially, I think in this competition and in international cricket, I think if you're bowling at 130 odd and bowling in straight lines, and especially considering the T20 World Cup in Australia, it's not going to bode too well for you overall. And I think he's got wickets this time, but he's going to have to add a bit more edge to his bowling, I think, to be successful while bowling better. And that's something that he would be looking to work on. And Ravi Bishnoi, I think, had a better first half than he did the second half. I'm surprised he's only taken 13 wickets after the way he started off. But the second half hasn't been too great for him. He's had some good games, but again, a way better first half. He's still gone at 8.44 despite the fact that he hasn't had that great of a second half. And yeah, I still think he's been decent, although, as I said, the first half much better. And Dushmanta Chamira, now I'll get to their best bowler, I think, in a bit, but I think he's actually done exactly what I thought he would do: be a threat with a new ball, and the moment the death overs arrive, just not do too much. He's gone at 8.72, so the same as Avesh Khan. He's got 9 wickets in 12 games. Now, when he's bowled the new ball, as I said, he has been quite good, but I'm not surprised that he has gone for runs of the death. Now, I remember in the RCB game, I actually, when he was bowling, or before he even bowled a ball in, I think, his last over, I thought that if they get 15 off him, it would be a disappointment, because I think that you can look to get a lot more off him when he bowls at the death. I thought there was a 6-run window. So 15 would be under par, 18 would be par, and 21 plus would be very good. Even though the first ball of that over was a wicket, I still thought there was a chance of them getting at least 18 or 21 runs, and they got, I think, 21 runs. So I think it did kind of show that he does give a lot of runs at the death, and we've seen this even in international cricket. And yeah, that's pretty much what I thought of this season, pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. And now I've Mohsin Khan, probably their best bowler this season, has played 9 games out of the 15 overall. And after the first game he played this season, I thought he'd kind of be a bit part player playing 2 or 3 games max. And he bowled at decent pace in the low 140s in that game and gave 18 runs in his 2 overs that he bowled. And I think he's had 2 off games overall in the tournament. I think that game, and also the game against the Rajasthan Royals, where he did give quite a few runs. But even considering those 2 games, he's played 9 games, taken 14 wickets, and gone at 5.96, considering those 2 off games. He's been their best bowler by far, in my view, and I'm surprised he hasn't been selected for the squad to face South Africa. And I'm saying this because, look, I think the purpose for the South Africa series is to explore World Cup probables, and I think, especially with what they selected Harshad Patel and Avesh Khan in that side. Now, if you're considering what Mohsin Khan offers, we've seen him bowl just about the same amount that we've seen Umran Malik bowl, and Umran Malik is fairly raw in his career. I think him, Arshdeep Singh and Mohsin Khan are all the same age. Umran Malik is fairly raw in his career, and quite a few times he's given above 50 runs in games, and with all the good, I think there is still the fact that he's quite raw at this point in his career. So I thought, with all the grounds that you could have selected Umran Malik, yes, it's a bit early, you'd think, to select Mohsin Khan, but as I said, we haven't seen the others too much either, and they selected Venkatesh Iyer after 10 games in the IPL to kind of suit the seam bowling all-rounder role, which there has been a dearth of in Indian cricket. Since he hasn't really bowled too much at all and hasn't had a great time with the bat, especially in this season's IPL, I think that that furore has kind of dwindled a bit. So based on selections in recent times, they could have given Mohsin Khan a go. I think he clocked 150 twice, I think in 2 balls against KKR, and has been bowling in the low 140s more often than not. So there is a ground to pick him, especially based on what they've some of the other selections, and I would have included him in the side. I mean, just imagine a left-down quick if he bowls more near that 150 odd more often than not, along with Arshdeep Singh and Umran Malik as 3 probables as well. It's quite a good set of bowlers even there. And I think in terms of Avesh Khan and Harshad Patel, as I said, with Australia in mind, are you really going to go to Harshad Patel as kind of one of the 3 main seamers, bowling cutters a bit in the middle and at the death in those conditions? Probably, not as much. And Avesh Khan, as I said, if he doesn't bowl in the 140s more often than not and just bowls in straight lines, I don't think the other batsmen are going to find it too difficult to try and target him. So I actually thought they could have picked Mohsin Khan, but they've selected the squad. And Krunal Pandya, I think, I think he's probably the most overhated cricketer, or one of the most overhated cricketers in this competition. I think with the mentality that he has, I think a lot of the time it does get used in terms of used against him, and I don't think people talk about his mentality in a cricketing sense as often. And I think it's something that you look for in an international or kind of a professional cricketer, and he does that. He does have that. In terms of what he brings in T20 cricket, batting at number 7, scoring some runs when if need be. And I think you can put faith in him to bat at that number 7 role, along with bowling 4 overs more often than not. So, he's taken 10 wickets in 14 games at an economy rate of 6.97, very handy, along with being a utility, kind of the all-round utility with ball and bat. And I think that, especially there was the first game of LSG season, there was a lot of dew around. They were defending, I think, 158. And in the first 12 overs, he finished his quota of 4 within the first 15, I think. And he bowled at 1 for 17, and he almost bowled as if there was no dew. So I think he's been a very handy player this tournament, and I don't think the stats show how handy he has been. And that's on their side. I mean, Jason Holder, 14 wickets in 12 games. As I've said before, I mean, I personally don't think he should be one of your 3 seamers in T20 cricket. He's not a 4-over bank, and I don't really think he has too much of a plan when he bowls in this format. I even have referenced the 4 wickets and 4 balls where it was a bit jammy, let's be honest. And I think at times he's bowled quite well with the death this season, especially in 1 or 2 games. And he has gone for runs at times, but he's been better than what I thought he would be. And I think, he hasn't really been too bad this season. They would have wanted to get a bit more from him with the bat. And I think it's a mixture of both. So you've got 58 runs and an average of 9.66 in 8 innings. But also it's a combination where, was he given, in all those 8 innings, was he given the opportunity to walk out when he had a lot of deliveries left? Well, no. At times, the other players are promoted ahead of him, and I think that's a factor as well. And I think that's he hasn't really been able to get momentum in this season with the bat because of that. But also when he has batted, he hasn't really scored too many either. So it's a combination of both. He has scored, I think, his high score is 16 this season, so he hasn't exactly had the greatest season with the bat. And that would be the thing that I'd get to in terms of things that they could make better. So I think with this batting lineup, you've got Ayush Badoni, Marcus Stoinis, and Jason Holder. And I think because of how good this spine is, or how good this spine was supposed to be, I think that at least one of those players would be underutilized in terms of at least batting one position lower than they could bat. And in the ideal world, if you've got Rahul, Quinton de Kock, Deepak Hooda, and I think Badoni should bat at 4, which I'll get to. You've got Holder or Marcus Stoinis at 5 or 6, and Krunal Pandya at 7. And especially with Holder and Marcus Stoinis, they could bat at least one position higher than they are batting. And I think it's a good problem to have because, again, the batting lineup looks that is short. However, I think in terms of their when they've sent players in, they have made it a bit complicated at times in their season. I mean, I still think the decision to send in Krishnappa Gautam at number 3 against Rajasthan Royals and expect it to go much more differently, or even slightly more differently than it did, which was a golden duck. I think I don't understand what they were doing there. And in that game, they sent out Marcus Stoinis at number 8 when, even then, they, with all those the blunders, really, with the way they lost their wickets. Yes, the bowling was good, but it was almost like they had a luxury of losing wickets because of the options they have in their batting lineup, and also sending out players when you'd think there'd be other options that would be better for that situation. They only lost by 3 runs, and I think that the management of their middle order has let them down. And that's the reason why you've got the likes of Marcus Stoinis, who hasn't, or Holder, who haven't been able to get any momentum in their play at all. Stoinis has gone decently when he has batted, but as I've said, he hasn't really. But he scored 156 runs in 11 games, and I think the 38 not out was the game that they lost by 3 runs against the Rajasthan Royals. So those two with the bat haven't exactly been able to have enough momentum to contribute. And also, Marcus Stoinis hasn't been used too much with the ball as well. I thought that, honestly, I thought Avesh Khan and Marcus Stoinis would bowl at the death. It hasn't exactly worked out that way too often, because I think he's only bowled 7 overs in 11 games. So they could have utilized his bowling a lot more. And that's on that. I don't think they've managed those two, especially with the bat, very well. And another thing, Ayush Badoni. Now, he after a game where him and Deepak Hooda recovered their team's innings to get that 158 or 157, I think. Well, yeah, 158, and also he played. He's I think scored 54 in that game, grafting at first and then playing a few shots towards the end. And a few games after that, he came in at I think number 6 and played some cameo innings, like the innings against CSK, or the couple of boundaries that he hit against DC to get his team over the line, to make things easier rather for them to get over the line. And apart from that, though, he's hardly got any opportunities. And that's why, with the way that he started in the tournament, he's in the end averaged 20 after 11 innings and struck 123. And you wouldn't really say it's his fault, because a lot of the time, I mean, after that Delhi game, for example, he hasn't really been prioritized anywhere enough as he should have been. Had Mumbai done the same thing with Tilak Verma, we would not have seen probably what a 19-year-old score 397 runs in an IPL season in his debut season. And I think they should have done a lot more to prioritize Bardoni. Simon Dew will criticize the move on TV to bat him at number 3 ahead of Deepak Huda in the second encounter against RR. However, I actually think that he should bat at number 3 or 4. I think that with what he showed in the first 3 or 4 games or so of this season, they had a talent there to work with, and instead they didn't prioritize him at all, and they didn't even prioritize the other players either. So with their middle order, yes, they didn't work too well for them after Deepak Huda. However, it is kind of LSG's doing as well, the management, and I think the captain's doing as well, that they didn't really maximize the order that they had. And that's why I've said LSG, the spine of their batting, I've said that quite a few times, and yet we haven't really seen that at all with their middle order. And that's something that I think they should do better next season. So yeah, that was on LSG's season, and there is something else which, of course, I know would be on the thoughts of a lot of people's mind, including mine, but I think I may get an opportunity to talk about that in the India-South Africa series that'll be starting in a few days. And yeah, I mean, I will still be kind of touching upon it anyways during that time. So yeah, that's on that. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?